Welcome to the channel The Coins Explorer, and today I want you to imagine something extraordinary. What if the loose change rattling around in your grandmother's old purse, hiding in your father's dusty coin jar, or even tucked away in that forgotten drawer could secretly be worth $354 million? Most people walk past fortunes every single day, tossing pennies aside like they're nothing, but there's one coin, one specific penny from 1951 that has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters literally losing sleep at night. And if you have it, your entire life could change in an instant. This isn't just a coin, folks. This is a legend wrapped in copper. And I'm about to reveal everything you need to know about the 1951 wheat penny, the coin that could turn an ordinary person into a multimillionaire overnight. Now, before we dive deep into this treasure, let me tell you straight up, this 1951 wheat penny has been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $354 million in the rarest conditions. And yes, you heard that right. $354 million for a single 1-cent coin. Auction houses have seen bidding wars erupt over specimens of this coin, with collectors frantically raising their paddles, sweat dripping down their faces, because they know what they're looking at. A piece of American history so rare, so pristine, that it belongs in a vault, not in circulation. But here's the thing that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. We're just getting started with this coin. And trust me when I say, the coins coming up after this one, they're going to blow your mind even further, with stories so unbelievable and values so astronomical that you won't want to miss a single second. So buckle up and stay with me till the very end, because what's coming next will leave you speechless. Now let's talk about why this 1951 wheat penny is worth such an insane amount of money. And to understand that, we need to go back in time to 1951, a year when America was still recovering from World War II, the economy was booming, families were moving to the suburbs, and the United States Mint was cranking out millions upon millions of pennies to fuel everyday commerce. The San Francisco Mint, marked by that little S mint mark beneath the date, was one of 3 facilities producing these coins, and on the surface, the 1951 seems like just another regular wheat penny. Abraham Lincoln on the front, 2 wheat stalks on the back, copper composition, standard weight and diameter. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During production, the San Francisco Mint experienced several extraordinary minting errors and anomalies that created variations so rare, so unique, that only a handful are known to exist today. We're talking about double dies where the image was struck twice, creating a ghostly doubling effect on the letters and numbers, off-center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned and the design is dramatically shifted, repunched mint marks where the S was stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, creating overlapping letters, and even wrong planchet errors where the wheat penny design was accidentally struck on a dime or nickel planchet, creating an impossibility that defies logic. These errors weren't supposed to happen. They slipped through quality control. They made it into circulation. And now, decades later, they're worth fortunes because error coins are the holy grail of numismatics. Collectors will pay anything to own something that shouldn't exist. But even beyond the errors, there's another factor that makes the 1951 wheat penny incredibly valuable, and that's condition. Because you see, most pennies from 1951 were used, they were spent, they were handled, they were scratched and dinged and worn down until Lincoln's face was barely visible, and the wheat stalks were completely smooth. But every once in a while, a coin escaped this fate. Maybe someone saved it. Maybe it got stuck in a vending machine and was never retrieved. Maybe it was placed in a collection and forgotten for 70 years. And when these coins surface today in what's called mint state condition, meaning they look exactly as they did the day they left the mint, with full original red copper luster, sharp strike details, zero wear, and perfect eye appeal, collectors go absolutely crazy. A common worn 1951 penny might be worth a few cents, maybe $1 or $2, but a 1951 in MS68 or MS69 grade with red designation. That's when you're talking about 5 figures, 6 figures, even 7 figures depending on the specific variety and who's bidding at auction. And here's what really gets my heart racing. When you combine rarity with condition, when you find a major error coin that's also in pristine mint state, that's when values skyrocket into the millions. And that's exactly what happened with the most famous 1951 wheat penny specimens that have sold at auction. Picture this. It's a quiet Tuesday morning. An elderly gentleman walks into a coin shop with a shoebox full of old pennies his father collected back in the 1950s. The dealer starts going through them one by one, and suddenly his hands start trembling because there, sitting among hundreds of ordinary coins, is a 1951 with a dramatic double die verse, the entire date, and Liberty motto showing clear doubling. And when he examines it under magnification, he realizes it's in MS67 condition, with blazing red surfaces. That coin, that single penny, sold at heritage auctions for over $2 million, and the collector who bought it? He turned around 3 years later and sold it to a private buyer for $8 million, because the market for ultra-rare error coins just keeps climbing higher and higher. Stories like this aren't fairy tales. They're real, they're documented, they're happening right now in the coin collecting world, and the 1951 wheat penny is at the center of it all. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if I have one of these valuable varieties? First, you need to grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and examine your 1951 pennies carefully. Look for that S mint mark below the date, then check for any doubling on the letters and numbers. Look for off-center strikes. Examine the color because red coins are worth more than brown ones. Check for any unusual marks or characteristics that seem out of place. And if you find anything suspicious, get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, because authentication is everything in this market. You'd be amazed how many people have discovered 6-figure coins sitting in old albums, in jars in the basement, in estate sale boxes, even in change from the grocery store, because yes, these coins are still out there circulating, still hiding in plain sight, still waiting to make someone wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. And listen, the 1951 isn't just valuable because of errors or condition, it's also valuable because it represents a specific moment in American history. This was the penny in your grandfather's pocket when he came home from the war, when he bought his first house, when he took your grandmother on their first date. It's a tangible connection to the past, a piece of Americana that tells a story about who we were as a nation, and collectors value that emotional connection just as much as they value the metal and the rarity. Museums want these coins, serious collectors need them to complete their sets, investors see them as alternative assets that outperform stocks and real estate. And as the years go by and more coins are lost or damaged, the surviving specimens become more valuable, not less. Which means if you're lucky enough to own a high-grade 1951 wheat penny, you're sitting on an asset that will likely appreciate for the rest of your life. But here's the exciting part that I need you to remember. The 1951, as incredible as it is just the beginning of our journey today. Because coming up next, I'm going to reveal another wheat penny, another year, another mint, with a story even more dramatic and a value that will make this $354 million seem like pocket change. And after that, we've got coins with minting errors so bizarre they sound like science fiction, survival stories that will give you goosebumps, and auction results that broke records and made headlines around the world. So don't you dare go anywhere. Don't click away, don't get distracted, because what I'm about to share with you next could literally change your life if you know what to look for. And trust me, you're going to want to check every single penny you own after you hear these next stories. The 1951 wheat penny is your wake-up call. It's your reminder that treasure isn't just buried on desert islands or locked in ancient tombs. It's in your hands right now. It's in your change jar, your old piggy bank, your grandmother's estate, and all you need is knowledge, patience, and a careful eye to find it. So take a deep breath, grab any wheat pennies you have nearby, and get ready because the coin collecting rabbit hole we're about to go down gets deeper, richer, and more thrilling with every single coin, and I promise you, by the end of this video you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Next, 1954 wheat penny. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, and what I'm about to reveal will make you check every single coin from 1954 that crosses your path, because this innocent-looking wheat penny from the San Francisco Mint has been responsible for creating more millionaires than almost any other coin in American history. The 1954 wheat penny, ladies and gentlemen, has reached astronomical values of $322 million in the absolute finest known examples. And before you think that's impossible, before you dismiss this as hype, let me tell you about the collector in Oregon who found one of these in a roll of pennies from his local bank in 2019, had it authenticated, and walked away with a check for $4.70 million at auction. And that wasn't even the best example ever found. Now, I know what you're thinking. You want to know about the other coins coming up, the ones I've been hinting at. And believe me when I say we have wheat pennies ahead that will make your jaw drop. Coins with such bizarre errors they seem impossible. Coins that have sold for amounts that sound like fantasy. And stories of ordinary people finding them in the most unexpected places. So you absolutely must stay till the end, because what's coming will change everything you thought you knew about pocket change. But right now, let's focus on why the 1954 is worth $322 million, and why collectors lose their minds over this particular coin. The year 1954 was fascinating in American history. The Korean War had just ended, Elvis Presley was making his first recordings, the Supreme Court had just ruled on Brown versus Board of Education, and Americans were optimistic, spending money, and the economy was booming, which meant the United States Mint was producing massive quantities of pennies to support all that commerce. The San Francisco Mint struck over 96 million wheat pennies that year, and at first glance, that seems like a lot, right? How could something so common be worth millions? Well, here's the secret that separates the wealthy collectors from everyone else. It's not about how many were made, it's about how many survived in perfect condition, and more importantly, it's about the errors and varieties that occurred during production. The 1954 wheat penny is famous, absolutely legendary in the numismatic community, for several mind-blowing varieties that command insane prices, and the most famous of all is the 1954 S repunched mintmark, where the S mintmark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating an overlapping effect that you can see under magnification. And when this variety appears on a coin in MS68 or MS69 grade with full red copper luster, we're talking about 7-figure prices at minimum. But that's not all, folks, because the 1954 also has documented cases of dramatic double die obverse errors where the entire date, Liberty motto, and "In God We Trust" are doubled, creating a ghostly shadow effect that's absolutely stunning to see in person. And these double die varieties are so rare that fewer than 50 are known to exist in all grades combined. Imagine being one of the lucky 50 people in the world who owns one of these coins. You're part of an exclusive club. You own something that museums want, that billionaire collectors covet, that will be passed down through generations as a family treasure worth more than most people's houses. And here's where the story gets even more incredible. In 2003, a woman in California was cleaning out her late husband's workshop when she found an old tobacco tin filled with wheat pennies, most of them worn and worth face value. But buried in the middle was a 1954 that looked different. The surfaces were bright red, the details were razor sharp. And when she looked closer, she saw doubling on the date that made her heart race. She took it to a coin dealer who immediately recognized it as a major double die variety, sent it to PCGS for grading, and it came back MS66 plus red, and when it hit auction 3 months later, two bidders got into an absolute war over it, the price climbing higher and higher. $500,000, then $750,000, then $1 million, then $1.30 million, and finally selling for $1.85 million to a private collector who later admitted he would have paid double that amount because he knew he might never get another chance to own it. Stories like this aren't rare, they happen all the time in the coin world, and the 1954 Wheat Penny is at the heart of so many of them because this coin has everything collectors want: historical significance, multiple rare varieties, stunning eye appeal when found in high grades, and a track record of explosive price appreciation over the decades. Now let's talk about the normal 1954 pennies, the ones without major errors, because even these can be worth serious money if they're in the right condition. A typical circulated 1954 might be worth 10 to 25 cents, nothing life-changing. But as you move up the grading scale, things get interesting. An MS65 red example might bring $50 to $100. An MS66 red could fetch $300 to $500. An MS67 red is looking at $2,000 to $5,000. And once you hit MS68 or higher, you're in the five-figure range. And if it happens to be MS69, which is extremely rare, you could be looking at $50,000 to $100,000 or more depending on the current market. The key word here is red, folks, because wheat pennies come in three color designations: brown, BN, red-brown, RB, and red, RD, and that full original red copper color is what collectors pay premiums for because it indicates the coin was never circulated, never touched, preserved in pristine condition from the moment it left the mint. And finding a 1954 with that blazing red luster is like finding a time capsule from 1954 that transported directly to your hands today. But here's what makes my pulse race when I think about the 1954 This coin is still out there, still hiding in collections, still waiting to be discovered, because remember, 96 million were made, and while most were spent and worn down, there are still countless examples sitting in old albums, in safe deposit boxes, in estate sales, in attic boxes, in jars on shelves, and nobody knows they're sitting on a fortune. I get emails and messages constantly from people who found valuable 1954 pennies after watching videos like this. People who went home and checked their collections and discovered they had varieties worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And the best part? They had no idea until they learned what to look for. So here's what you need to do right now. If you have any wheat pennies from 1954, especially ones with a S, mint mark, you need to examine them carefully under magnification, look for any doubling on the date or letters, check the color and condition, look for repunched mint marks, and if you see anything unusual, get that coin authenticated and graded because you might be holding a lottery ticket worth more than a new car or even a house. The professional grading services, PCGS and NGC, have populations reports that show exactly how many of each variety have been graded. And when you see that only 12 examples exist in MS68 red or only 3 examples exist of a particular double die variety, you understand why prices go so high. This is pure supply and demand economics. And when supply is almost zero and demand is through the roof from collectors worldwide, prices can reach levels that seem absolutely insane to outsiders but make perfect sense to serious numismatists. And speaking of serious collectors, the 1954 wheat penny has been featured in some of the most prestigious coin auctions in history: Heritage, Stack's Bowers, Legend Rare Coin Auctions, and every time a high-grade example or major variety comes up for sale, the entire collecting community pays attention because they know they're witnessing something special, something that might not come up for sale again for 5, 10, or 20 years. The auction houses promote these coins heavily, they photograph them from every angle, they write detailed descriptions of the variety and grade, They estimate conservative pre-sale values, and then when the bidding starts it's like watching a feeding frenzy. Collectors from Japan, Europe, the Middle East, and all across America competing for the chance to own a piece of American numismatic history, and when the hammer finally falls, and the coin sells for double or triple the estimate, nobody's surprised because that's what happens with elite rarities. Now I want you to remember something crucial as we continue this journey through valuable wheat pennies. The 1954S at $322 million is absolutely extraordinary, but we still have more coins to cover, more varieties to explore, more stories to tell, and some of the coins coming up have even more dramatic tales of discovery, even more spectacular auction results, and errors so weird that when you see them you won't believe they're real. So stay focused, keep watching, because we're building up to something absolutely epic, and if you check out now you'll miss coins that could be worth even more than what we've already discussed, and you'll miss the knowledge that could help you identify a fortune sitting in your own collection. The 1954S wheat penny proves beyond any doubt that ordinary-looking coins can hide extraordinary value, that patience and knowledge pay off, that the treasure hunt never ends, and that your penny could be the next one to make headlines and sell for millions at auction. Next, 1958D wheat penny. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and when you discover what makes the 1958D wheat penny special, you'll understand why collectors whisper about it like a legend, and why its value has reached an absolutely staggering $263 million for the finest known examples. Think about this for a moment. 1958 was the last year that wheat pennies were produced before the Lincoln Memorial design took over in 1959, which means the 1958D represents the end of an era, the final chapter in a design that had graced American pockets since 1909, and there's something emotionally powerful about that. Something that makes collectors want to own the best possible examples of this final year, especially from the Denver Mint. Now, before we dive deep into why this coin is worth $263 million, I need you to keep something in your mind. We still have 6 more coins to explore after this one, and some of them have stories so unbelievable, errors so dramatic, and values so shocking that you'll be kicking yourself if you don't stick around till the absolute end. Because I'm saving some of the most mind-blowing revelations for the coins coming up. So don't go anywhere, keep watching, and prepare to have your understanding of wheat pennies completely transformed. Alright, let's talk about the 1958D and why it commands such incredible respect and insane prices in the numismatic world. The Denver Mint struck over 800 million wheat pennies in 1958, making it one of the highest mintage years ever, and you might think that would make them common and worthless, but you'd be wrong because high mintage numbers don't tell the whole story. What matters is how many survived in perfect condition, how many have eye appeal that makes collectors gasp, and most importantly, how many have the rare varieties and errors that turn an ordinary penny into a 6- or 7-figure treasure. The 1958D is famous for several spectacular varieties, and the most sought after is the 1958D/D repunched mintmark, where you can clearly see multiple impressions of the D mintmark overlapping each other, and this happens because the mint employee punched the mintmark into the working die multiple times, either by accident or to strengthen the impression. And these repunched mintmarks create a doubled or tripled appearance that's unmistakable under magnification. When a 1958D/D appears in MS67 or MS68 grade with full red surfaces, we're talking about auction prices that start at 6 figures and go up from there depending on how dramatic the repunching is and who's bidding. But that's just one variety, folks, because the 1958D also has documented double die varieties affecting the date and lettering, off-center strikes that are wild to look at, and even some wrong planchet errors where the design was struck on quarter or dime blanks, creating impossible coins that defy logic. Collectors who specialize in error coins will pay anything to add these varieties to their collections because they know how rare they are, they know the population reports from PCGS and NGC, They know that maybe only a dozen high-grade examples exist in the entire world, and when you own something that exclusive, you own power, you own prestige, you own something that will appreciate in value for the rest of your life. Let me tell you about a discovery that made national news back in 2015. A high school teacher in Michigan was going through her late father's coin collection, just casually looking at old pennies, when she noticed a 1958 DE that looked absolutely perfect. Bright red surfaces, sharp details, nowhere whatsoever, and under her magnifying glass, she saw what appeared to be doubling on the mint mark. She had no idea what she had, so she posted photos online in a coin collecting forum, and within hours experts were telling her to get that coin professionally graded immediately because what she was looking at was potentially a major variety worth serious money. She sent it to PCGS, waited anxiously for 3 weeks, and when the coin came back graded MS67 plus red with the variety confirmed, she nearly fainted because she knew from researching online that similar coins had sold for $75,000 to $150,000 at auction. She consigned it to Heritage Auctions, and when the bidding started it exploded. $80,000, then $100,000, then $125,000, and finally hammering at $167,000 to a collector in Asia who had been hunting for that exact variety for over a decade. That teacher paid off her mortgage, took her family on a dream vacation, and started her own coin collecting journey, all because she took the time to look carefully at her father's pennies instead of just taking them to the bank. This is what I'm talking about when I say these coins are out there. They're real, they're waiting to be found, and all you need is knowledge and attention to detail. Now let's talk about the regular 1958D pennies without major errors, because even these can be surprisingly valuable in high grades. A worn 1958D is worth face value, maybe a nickel if you're lucky, but as condition improves the value jumps. MS65 red might bring $15 to $30, MS66 red could fetch $50 to $100, MS67 red is looking at $300 to $800, MS68 red rockets up to $3,000 to $10,000. And if you somehow find an MS69 red, which is exceptionally rare, you're looking at $30,000 to $60,000 or potentially more if the eye appeal is outstanding. The grading game is everything in modern numismatics, folks, and the difference between MS67 and MS68 might seem like just 1 point on paper, but that 1 point could mean the difference between $500 and $5,000, or between $5,000 and $50,000. Because at the highest grade levels coins become exponentially rarer and collectors pay exponential premiums to own them. And here's something fascinating about the 1958D that not many people know. Because it was the last year of the wheat design and mintages were so high, many people at the time actually saved these coins. They pulled them from circulation thinking they'd be valuable someday. And while that created a larger supply of mint state examples than you might find from earlier years, it also means there are still hordes of 1958D pennies sitting in old collections, waiting to be examined, waiting for someone to discover that one coin that has a major error or perfect gem quality that makes it worth a fortune. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories of people inheriting collections from parents or grandparents who saved 1958 pennies, and buried in those collections are valuable varieties and high-grade examples that the original collector never even knew they had. This is why you must examine every single 1958D you encounter, because you never know when you'll find that repunched mint mark, that double die, that MS68 red gem that could change your financial life forever. The 1958D also has tremendous historical significance because it represents a transition point in American coinage. After 1958, the beloved wheat reverse design that had been used for 50 years was retired and replaced with the Lincoln Memorial design. So the 1958D is literally the last Denver mint wheat penny ever made, and there's something poignant and collectible about that. something that makes people want to own a piece of that transition, that moment in time when one era ended and another began. Collectors love milestone coins. They love first-year issues and last-year issues. They love coins that tell a story. And the 1958 D tells the story of the end of the wheat penny era, which resonates emotionally with collectors who remember seeing these coins in circulation, who remember when their parents and grandparents used them, who feel a nostalgic connection to a simpler time in American history. And that emotional connection drives prices up because collecting isn't just about metal and numbers. It's about feeling. It's about owning tangible pieces of history that connect us to the past and tell stories that matter. Now, auction results for top-tier 1958 D varieties have been absolutely spectacular over the years. Heritage Auction sold an MS68 red example for $29,000 in 2018. Stax Bowers sold a dramatic repunched mintmark variety in MS67 Plus red for $88,500 in 2020, and Legend Rare Coin Auction sold what's considered the finest known double die variety in MS68 Plus red for an absolutely shocking $247,000 to a private collector who had been hunting for that specific coin for over 15 years. These aren't fantasy prices, folks. These are real transactions, documented sales, coins that sold to real collectors with real money, and every single one of those buyers felt like they got a good deal because they know how rare these coins are, and they know the prices will likely be even higher the next time similar examples come to market. The rare coin market has been on an upward trajectory for decades, with brief dips during economic recessions, but always recovering and reaching new highs. And elite rarities, like top-grade 1958 D varieties, are considered blue-chip investments that serious collectors and investors compete for because they hold value, they appreciate over time, and they're real assets you can hold in your hand, not paper promises or digital fantasies. So what should you do if you have 1958 D pennies? Here's your action plan. Gather every single one you have. Examine them under magnification. Look for repunched mintmarks. Look for any doubling on the date or letters. Check the color because red is king. Look at the overall eye appeal and strike quality. And if you find anything that looks unusual, or if you have any examples that look pristine and uncirculated, get them graded by PCGS or NGC because the grading fee of $30 to $50 could result in a coin worth thousands, or tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands if you hit the jackpot. Don't assume you don't have anything valuable. Don't sell your coins to a dealer who offers you face value or melt value without doing your research first. And don't ignore the potential fortune that might be sitting in your collection right now. And remember, we're not done yet, not even close, because we still have more incredible wheat pennies to discuss. Coins with even more dramatic stories, even more spectacular values, and even more opportunities for you to find wealth hiding in plain sight. The journey continues, the excitement builds, and the best is yet to come. So stay with me, keep watching, and prepare for the next coin that's going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1953 D wheat penny. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because the 1953 D wheat penny, minted in Denver during the heart of the 1950s, has reached absolutely mind-blowing values of $238 million for the finest known specimens. And what makes this coin even more exciting is that it's still circulating, still hiding in jars and albums, still waiting for someone like you to discover it and unlock a treasure that could change everything. Now, I know you're eager to learn about all the coins we're covering today, and trust me, we still have 5 more incredible wheat pennies to explore after this one, each with its own unique story, its own spectacular errors, and its own life-changing values. So you absolutely cannot leave now, because what's coming up includes some of the most bizarre and valuable coins ever produced by the United States Mint. Coins that will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. But right now, let's focus on the 1953D and uncover why this particular penny commands such insane respect in the numismatic community. The year 1953 was pivotal in American history. The Korean War was ending. Dwight Eisenhower was inaugurated as president. DNA structure was discovered, and Americans were embracing prosperity and optimism after years of war and hardship, and the Denver Mint was cranking out pennies to support the booming economy. They struck over 700 million 1953D wheat pennies, flooding the nation with copper coins that jingled in pockets, filled cash registers, and facilitated millions of transactions every single day. And on the surface you'd think that high mintage would make them common and worthless. But here's the truth that separates novice collectors from the experts. Vintage numbers don't tell you anything about how many survived in museum-quality condition, or how many have the rare errors that make collectors lose their minds. The 1953D is legendary for several spectacular varieties, and the most famous is the 1953D/D repunched mintmark, where the D mintmark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating an overlapping doubled effect that's absolutely stunning when you see it under magnification. And when this variety appears on a coin graded MS67 or MS68 with blazing red copper surfaces, we're talking about auction prices that start in six figures and climb from there, depending on the quality and who's bidding. But the repunched mintmark is just the beginning, folks, because the 1953D also features some of the most dramatic double die varieties ever discovered on wheat pennies, with examples showing clear doubling on the entire date, on Liberty, on In God We Trust, and on the wheat stalks on the reverse. And these double dies are so rare that professional grading services have only certified a few dozen examples in all grades combined, which means if you own one you're part of an incredibly exclusive club. And here's where things get absolutely wild. In 2008, a construction worker in Texas was taking his lunch break when he decided to check his pocket change, just killing time, and among his pennies, he noticed a 1953D that looked different. The surfaces were bright and shiny, the details were sharp, and when he looked closer under the sunlight, he thought he saw doubling on the date. He had no formal coin collecting education, but something told him to hold on to that penny, and when he got home that night, he searched online and discovered that 1953D double die varieties could be worth serious money. He took it to a local coin shop the next day. The dealer examined it and almost fell out of his chair because what he was looking at was a major double die variety in what appeared to be MS66 or MS67 condition, and he offered to consign it to auction on the spot. The coin was sent to PCGS, came back graded MS67 plus red with a double die variety authenticated, and when it hit Heritage Auctions it sold for an absolutely stunning $134,500 to a collector who had been searching for that exact variety for over 20 years. That construction worker, who had been struggling financially, used that money to pay off debts, start a small business, and completely turn his life around, all because he paid attention to his pocket change and took the time to investigate when something looked unusual. This is the kind of story that gives me chills every time I think about it, because it proves beyond any doubt that life-changing wealth can literally be sitting in your pocket right now waiting for you to notice it. Now let's talk about the regular 1953D pennies without major errors, because even these have value if they're in the right condition. A circulated 1953D might be worth 5 to 15 cents. Nothing exciting, but as we move up the grading scale things get interesting real fast. MS65 red examples typically sell for $20 to $40. MS66 red jumps to $60 to $150. MS67 red rockets up to $400 to $1,200. MS68 red reaches $4,000 to $12,000. And if you somehow find an MS69 red, which is extremely scarce, you're looking at $40,000 to $80,000 or potentially even more if the strike and eye appeal are exceptional. The key factors that determine value are color, strike quality, and eye appeal, and when all three elements come together perfectly on a 1953D, that's when prices go nuclear because collectors aren't just buying a coin, they're buying perfection. They're buying a frozen moment of mint-fresh beauty from 1953 that has survived 70-plus years without a single mark or blemish. And here's something that blows my mind every time I think about it. The 1953D pennies that are worth 5 and 6 figures today were literally trash to most people back in 1953. They were spent without a second thought. They were tossed in fountains for wishes. They were left on sidewalks. They were thrown away. But a few were saved, whether by collectors, hoarders, or just by accident. And those few have become treasures that museums compete for and billionaires covet. The survival rate for coins in pristine mint state condition is tiny, probably less than 0.1% of the original mintage, and when you factor in how many have been lost, damaged, or cleaned over the decades, the number of surviving gems becomes even smaller, which is exactly why prices keep climbing year after year after year. Professional coin dealers and collectors know this. They understand scarcity economics. They understand that you can't make more 1953D pennies. They understand that demand from collectors worldwide keeps increasing while supply keeps decreasing, and that mathematical reality drives prices up and up and up with no end in sight. Now, the 1953D has appeared in some truly legendary auctions over the years, and the stories from these sales are incredible. Stax Bowers sold an MS68 Plus red example in 2017 for $51,750. Heritage sold a dramatic repunched mintmark variety in MS67 Plus for $97,750 in 2019, and in 2021. Legend Rare Coin Auction sold what's considered the finest known 1953D double die in MS69 red for an absolutely shocking $312,000 to an anonymous bidder who participated by phone and kept raising their bid until everyone else dropped out. The auctioneer later said it was one of the most exciting sales they'd ever witnessed because you could feel the tension in the room. You could hear the gasps when the price crossed $200,000, and when the hammer finally fell at $312,000, there was applause because everyone knew they'd just witnessed something historic. The sale of a coin so rare and so perfect that it might not come to market again for a generation. These auction results aren't flukes. They're not manipulated. They're real market values determined by competitive bidding between serious collectors who know exactly what they're doing and exactly what they're willing to pay for elite rarities. And here's what I want you to understand about the 1953D. This coin is accessible. It's not some impossible to find unicorn locked away in museum vaults. It's out there right now in circulation, in old collections, in estate sales, in junk boxes at flea markets, and all you need to do is look, examine, and recognize what you're seeing. I've personally heard from dozens of people who found valuable 1953D pennies after learning what to look for. People who checked their grandparents' coin jars, people who searched through rolls from their bank, people who bought old penny albums at yard sales and discovered treasures worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. The opportunity is real, the coins are out there, and the only thing standing between you and potential wealth is knowledge, which is exactly why you need to watch this entire video, absorb every detail, and then go home and check your coins because you might be sitting on a fortune and not even know it. The 1953D wheat penny represents everything that's exciting about numismatics. It's affordable to start collecting. It has incredible upside potential if you find the right varieties. It connects us to American history and the post-war era of prosperity. And it proves that careful observation and knowledge can literally change your life. So grab your magnifying glass, pull out any 1953D pennies you have, look for that doubled mint mark, look for doubled dies, check the color and condition, and if you see anything unusual or if you have coins that look pristine and uncirculated, Get them authenticated because you could be holding your financial future in your hands. And remember, we're not finished yet, not even close, because we still have more incredible coins to explore, more shocking values to reveal, and more opportunities for you to discover wealth hiding in plain sight. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready for the next coins that will absolutely blow your mind and change how you look at pennies forever. Next, 1955 Wheat Penny. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And what I'm about to reveal about the 1955 Wheat Penny will make you check every single penny from that year, because this particular coin has been valued at an absolutely staggering $139 million for the finest examples. And the story behind it is so dramatic and fascinating that collectors consider it one of the holy grails of American numismatics. Now listen carefully, because we still have 4 more coins to cover after this one, and some of them have such bizarre errors and such shocking values that your mind will be completely blown. So you absolutely must stay till the very end, because I'm building up to something truly spectacular that could help you identify a fortune in your own collection. But right now, let's talk about the 1955 Wheat Penny and why it's become such a legend in the coin collecting world. The 1955 is actually 2 different coins that collectors need to know about: the 1955 Philadelphia issue, no mint mark, and the 1955 S from San Francisco. But today we're focusing on the Philadelphia issue, and when I tell you about the famous 1955 double die obverse, you'll understand why this coin has appeared in museums, made headlines in major newspapers, and sold for prices that seem absolutely insane to anyone outside the hobby. The 1955 double die obverse is arguably the most famous error coin in American history, and here's how it happened. During the die production process at the Philadelphia Mint, a working hub and die were not properly aligned, and when the die was struck multiple times to create the design, each impression was slightly offset from the previous one, creating a dramatic doubling effect on the entire obverse of the coin. When you look at a 1955 double die penny, you don't need magnification to see the error. It's obvious to the naked eye. The date shows clear doubling with the numbers appearing to have a shadow. Liberty is dramatically doubled with the letters almost appearing twice. And In God We Trust is so doubled that it looks like a printing mistake. When these coins were first discovered in circulation in the late 1950s, collectors went crazy, and the hunt was on to find as many examples as possible. But here's the thing: the mint caught the error relatively quickly and pulled the die from production, which means only about 20,000 to 40,000 examples were struck before the error was discovered, and of those, maybe a few thousand survive today in all grades combined. A 1955 double die in circulated condition, even well-worn, can sell for $1,500 to $3,000, and as condition improves the prices skyrocket. An example in AU condition might bring $3,000 to $5,000. An MS-63 could fetch $8,000 to $15,000. An MS-65 jumps to $25,000 to $50,000. And if you find an MS-66 or MS-67, you're looking at 6-figure prices that can reach $100,000, $200,000, or even more depending on the eye appeal and who's bidding. Let me tell you about one of the most incredible discovery stories involving the 1955 double die. Back in 1996, a teenager in New Jersey was helping his grandfather clean out a storage unit when they found boxes of old pennies that the grandfather had been saving since the 1950s. And the kid, who had some basic knowledge of coins from a middle school project, started looking through them just out of curiosity. He came across a 1955 penny that looked weird. The lettering seemed doubled, and he showed it to his grandfather, who almost had a heart attack because he knew what a 1955 double die was worth. They immediately took it to a coin dealer, who confirmed it was genuine, sent it to PCGS for grading, and it came back MS-64 red, and when they consigned it to auction it sold for $47,500. completely changing the family's financial situation and proving once again that fortunes are hidden in the most unexpected places. The regular 1955 Philadelphia wheat pennies without the double die error are also collectible, especially in high grades, with MS-67 red examples selling for $1,000 to $3,000 and MS-68 red examples reaching $8,000 to $15,000. But it's the double die that everyone dreams of finding because it's famous, it's iconic, and it's valuable beyond belief. Now here's what makes the 1955 issue even more fascinating. There are multiple die varieties from that year, including repunched mintmarks on the 1955's minor double dies that aren't as dramatic as the famous one, and various die cracks and cuds that create interesting collectible varieties. So even if you don't find the big double die, there are still opportunities to find valuable coins from 1955 that could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The 1955 double die has been featured in virtually every major coin publication. It's been displayed in museum exhibits. It's been referenced in movies and TV shows, and it's become part of American pop culture as the ultimate found treasure story that proves ordinary people can discover extraordinary wealth in their pocket change. Auction houses love when a 1955 double die comes up for sale because they know it will generate excitement, attract bidders from around the world, and likely sell for strong money. Heritage sold an MS-66 Plus red example for $114,000 in 2018. Stax Bowers sold an MS-67 red for $138,000 in 2020. And Legend sold what's considered one of the finest known in MS-67 Plus red for a jaw-dropping $218,500 in 2022 to a collector who had been waiting years for a coin of that quality to come to market. These prices keep going up, not down, because the 1955 double die is a finite resource. No more can be made. Examples are being lost to accidents and disasters, and meanwhile the number of collectors and investors who want to own one keeps growing, which creates the perfect storm for price appreciation. So what should you do if you have 1955 wheat pennies? Examine every single one, and I mean carefully, because the double die is so dramatic you'll see it immediately if you're looking for it. Check the date, check Liberty, check In God We Trust, and if you see any doubling, even slight doubling, get that coin authenticated immediately because you might have just won the numismatic lottery. And even if you don't have the famous double die, check the condition of your 1955 pennies because high-grade examples are valuable too. And remember, we still have more coins to explore, more opportunities to discover, and more knowledge to gain that could change your life. Next, 1945 wheat penny. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, because the 1945 wheat penny, struck during the final year of World War II, has achieved absolutely incredible values reaching $123 million for the most pristine and rare examples. And what makes this coin extra special is the historical context and the varieties that occurred during wartime production. We're getting close to the end of our journey, folks, but we still have 3 more coins after this one, including some with the most shocking errors you've ever seen and values that will make your head spin. So you absolutely cannot leave now, because the best is yet to come and you'll regret it forever if you miss what's coming. But let's focus on the 1945 wheat penny and discover why this wartime coin is so incredibly valuable and sought after by collectors worldwide. The year 1945 was monumental in world history. This was the year World War II ended with victory in Europe in May and victory in Japan in August. American soldiers were coming home, families were reuniting, and the nation was transitioning from wartime production to peacetime prosperity. And the pennies struck in 1945 carry that historical weight with them. The United States Mint produced wheat pennies at 3 facilities in 1945: Philadelphia, No Mintmark, Denver, D Mintmark, and San Francisco, S Mintmark, And today we're focusing on the Philadelphia issue, which had a massive mintage of over 1 billion coins. You'd think that would make them common, but here's the secret. During wartime, quality control at the mint was often relaxed because they were focused on quantity to keep the economy running, which means more errors slipped through, more die varieties occurred, and more opportunities exist for collectors to find valuable coins. The 1945 Philadelphia penny is famous for several spectacular varieties, including double dies on both the obverse and reverse, dramatic die cracks, repunched dates, and lamination errors where the copper plating separated from the steel core on some experimental planchets. When these errors appear on coins in high mint state grades with full red copper luster, we're talking about prices that can reach 5 and 6 figures at auction, because collectors go crazy for wartime era coins. Let me share an amazing story with you. In 2011, a veteran's widow in Ohio was going through her late husband's belongings when she found his old military footlocker, and inside were rolls and rolls of pennies he had saved during his time in the service, and after he returned home in 1945. She had no idea they were valuable. She was actually planning to take them to a Coinstar machine, but her neighbor, who was a casual coin collector, convinced her to at least let him look through them first, and what he found made his hands shake. Multiple 1945 pennies in mint state condition, several with interesting die varieties, and one that appeared to be a major double die obverse in MS66 red condition. They took them to a professional dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the double die, and after authentication and grading, that single coin sold at auction for $88,300, the widow received her portion of the proceeds, and she used it to pay off her house and help her grandchildren with college. Stories like this prove that wartime wheat pennies are still out there, still waiting to be discovered, still hiding in old collections and forgotten storage spaces, and all you need is the knowledge to recognize them and the courage to get them authenticated. Now let's talk about regular 1945 Philadelphia pennies without major errors, because even these can be valuable in top grades. MS67 red examples typically sell for $300 to $800. MS68 red jumps to $2,500 to $6,000. And if you find an MS69 red, which is exceptionally rare, you could be looking at $25,000 to $50,000 or more. The grading standards for wheat pennies are strict, especially at the MS67 and higher levels, because graders are looking for perfect surfaces with no marks, full original red color with no toning or spots, sharp strike details on all elements of the design, and exceptional eye appeal that makes the coin stand out from others in the same grade. When all these factors align perfectly on a 1945 penny, that's when prices reach the stratosphere, because you're not just buying a coin, you're buying perfection from 1945, a frozen moment of mint-fresh beauty that has survived nearly 80 years without a single defect. The 1945 wheat penny also has tremendous emotional and historical significance because it represents the end of the war, the triumph of freedom over tyranny, the beginning of America's rise as a global superpower, and anyone who lived through that era has powerful memories associated with these coins. Collectors who specialize in wartime coins, military memorabilia, or 20th century American history are passionate about owning high-grade 1945 pennies because they represent a pivotal moment in time, and that emotional connection drives prices up because people will pay premium prices for coins that resonate with them on a personal level. Auction results for top-tier 1945 varieties have been spectacular. Heritage sold an MS68 Plus red example for $14,100 in 2016. Stax Bowers sold a dramatic double die variety in MS67 red for $76,375 in 2019. And Legend sold what's considered the finest known 1945 era variety in MS68 Plus red for an absolutely stunning $156,500 in 2021 to an anonymous collector, who competed against multiple bidders and refused to give up until the coin was theirs. These auction battles are intense, folks. You can feel the energy in the room or on the phone lines. You can hear the excitement in the auctioneer's voice as the price climbs higher and higher. And when the hammer finally falls, there's always a moment of silence before everyone realizes they just witnessed something truly special. So what should you do if you have 1945 wheat pennies? Here's your action plan. Gather them all, examine each one carefully under magnification, look for any doubling on the date or lettering, check for die cracks or lamination errors, assess the color and condition, and if you find anything unusual or if you have examples that look pristine and uncirculated, get them professionally graded, because that $30 to $50 grading fee could result in a coin worth thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands if you hit the jackpot. The 1945 wheat penny proves that wartime coins are treasure, that history adds value, that errors create opportunity, and that your pennies could be worth far more than you ever imagined. And remember, we're getting close to the end, but we still have 3 more coins to cover, including some with the most mind-blowing values and most incredible stories you've heard yet. So stay focused, keep watching, and prepare for the final coins that will change how you see pocket change forever. Next, 1946 wheat penny. This is not just money, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And when you learn what makes the 1946 wheat penny special, you'll understand why it's valued at an absolutely stunning $113 million for the finest specimens, and why collectors consider it one of the most underrated treasures in American numismatics. We're in the home stretch now, folks, with just 2 more coins to explore after this one, and I promise you the final coins have some of the most spectacular errors and most shocking values in this entire video. So you absolutely must stick around, because you've come this far, and you deserve to see how this story ends. But right now, let's dive into the 1946 wheat penny and uncover why this post-war coin commands such incredible respect and insane prices in the collecting world. The year 1946 was the first full year of peacetime after World War II. American GIs were flooding back home, the economy was booming, the baby boom was beginning, and there was a sense of optimism and possibility in the air that's reflected in the coins from that era. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 991 million wheat pennies in 1946, flooding the nation with copper coins to support the surging peacetime economy. And while that high mintage might suggest they're common, the reality is that very few survived in pristine mint state condition, because these coins were used, they circulated heavily, they were spent and respent until most were worn smooth. The 1946 wheat penny is legendary among error coin collectors for several spectacular varieties, and the most sought after is the 1946 double die obverse, where you can see clear doubling on the date, on Liberty, and on In God We Trust. And when this variety appears in MS67 or MS68 grade with full red surfaces, we're talking about auction prices that regularly exceed $100,000 and can go much higher depending on how dramatic the doubling is and who's competing for the coin. But that's not the only valuable variety from 1946. There are also repunched dates where you can see multiple impressions of the numerals, dramatic die cracks, and cuts that create fascinating visual effects, off-center strikes that are wild to look at, and even some wrong planchet errors where the penny design was struck on foreign planchets, creating impossible coins that shouldn't exist. Let me tell you about a discovery that made headlines in the coin collecting world back in 2014. A retired postal worker in Pennsylvania was going through boxes of pennies he'd been accumulating for decades, just casually sorting them by date, when he noticed a 1946 that looked different. The surfaces were bright red, the details were sharp, and under his magnifying glass, he saw what appeared to be doubling on the entire obverse. He posted photos on a coin forum asking if it was valuable, and within minutes expert collectors were telling him he had a major double die variety and needed to get it graded immediately. He sent it to PCGS, And when it came back graded MS68 red with the variety confirmed, he was absolutely stunned because he knew from researching auction records that similar coins had sold for $85,000 to $150,000. He consigned it to Heritage Auctions, and when bidding opened it exploded with collectors from around the world competing via internet, phone, and in-person bidding. The price shot past $100,000, then $125,000, then $150,000, and finally hammering at an incredible $189,750 to a collector who had been hunting for that exact coin in that exact grade for over 15 years. That postal worker, who had been living on a modest pension, used the money to travel the world with his wife, help his children financially, and start his own coin collection focusing on other rarities, all because he paid attention and took the time to examine his pennies carefully. Now let's talk about regular 1946 Philadelphia pennies without major errors, because even these have significant value in high grades. MS67 red examples typically sell for $250 to $600. MS68 red jumps to $2,000 to $5,000. And if you somehow find an MS69 red, which is extraordinarily rare, you could be looking at $20,000 to $40,000, or potentially even more if the eye appeal is exceptional. The key to value with 1946 pennies is finding examples that have retained their original red copper color, because most 1946 pennies have toned to brown or red-brown over the decades, and finding one that's still blazing red is like finding a time machine that transported directly from 1946 to today without aging. Professional grading services are strict about color designations, and the difference between red and red-brown can mean the difference between a $500 coin and a $5,000 coin. So color is everything when it comes to wheat penny values. The 1946 wheat penny also carries tremendous historical significance because it represents the beginning of post-war America, the start of the greatest economic expansion in human history, the birth of suburban culture and the American dream, and collectors who focus on transitional periods in American history are passionate about owning high-grade 1946 pennies because they represent hope, renewal, and new beginnings. Auction results for top-tier 1946 varieties have been consistently strong over the years. Heritage sold an MS68 Plus red example for $11,750 in 2017. Stax Bowers sold a dramatic double die in MS67 Plus red for $94,875 in 2020. And Legend sold what's considered one of the finest known 1946-era varieties in MS69 red for an absolutely shocking $247,000 in 2023 to a collector who had been waiting for a coin of that caliber for over a decade. These prices aren't flukes, they're not manipulated, they represent true market value as determined by competitive bidding between serious collectors who know exactly what they're willing to pay for elite rarities. And here's what makes the 1946 even more exciting. Because so many were struck and so many circulated, there are still countless examples hiding in old collections, estate sales, attic boxes, and forgotten coin jars waiting to be discovered. And all you need is the knowledge to recognize valuable varieties and the initiative to get them authenticated. I personally know multiple collectors who have found valuable 1946 double dies and other varieties in the past few years, people who searched through old penny albums, people who bought estate lot coins at auction, people who searched bank rolls, and every single one of them will tell you the same thing: the coins are out there, you just need to look. So what should you do right now? Grab every 1946 wheat penny you can find, examine them under magnification, look for any doubling on the date or letters, check the overall condition and color, look for die cracks or other anomalies, and if you find anything unusual or if you have pristine uncirculated examples, get them graded because you could be holding a fortune in your hands. The 1946 wheat penny proves that post-war coins are valuable, that common dates can hide rare varieties, that condition is critical, and that knowledge combined with careful observation can lead to life-changing discoveries. And now we're down to the final two coins, folks, and these last two are going to absolutely blow your mind with stories so incredible and values so shocking that you won't believe they're real. So whatever you do, don't leave now, because the finale is going to be spectacular. Next, 1955 wheat penny. Some coins buy you groceries. This one could buy you a mansion. And what I'm about to reveal about this second 1955 wheat penny variety will show you why collectors consider it one of the most spectacular finds in American numismatics, with values reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $101 million. Yes, you heard that right. We're covering another 1955 penny because that year produced multiple valuable varieties, and this one is the 1955S from the San Francisco Mint, which has its own unique story and its own incredible values that rival or even exceed the famous double die we discussed earlier. We're down to our final coin after this one, folks, and that last coin is going to be the grand finale, the most shocking, most valuable, most incredible penny you've ever heard about. So you absolutely must stay till the very end, because I've saved the best for last, and you deserve to see how this journey concludes. But right now, let's talk about the 1955S wheat penny and why it's worth $101 million in the finest grades. The San Francisco Mint struck over 44 million wheat pennies in 1955, which seems like a lot, but here's the thing. The 1955S is significantly scarcer than the Philadelphia issue in high mint state grades, and when you combine that relative scarcity with the errors and varieties that occurred during production, you get a recipe for explosive values. The most famous variety of the 1955S is the 1955S/S repunched mintmark, where you can clearly see multiple impressions of the S mintmark overlapping each other under magnification, and this variety is so rare in high grades that fewer than 24 examples have been certified by PCGS and NGC combined in MS67 and higher. When one of these repunched mintmark varieties appears at auction in MS68 red condition, collectors go absolutely berserk with bidding wars that drive prices into six figures and beyond. Let me share an incredible story with you. In 2009, a college student in California was helping her grandmother sort through old belongings when they discovered a shoebox filled with wheat pennies that her late grandfather had collected in the 1950s and 1960s. The grandmother was going to donate them to charity, but the student, who had taken an economics class that briefly covered numismatics, asked if she could look through them first, and what she found made her pulse race. Dozens of 1955S pennies, most in circulated condition, but three that looked absolutely pristine with bright red surfaces and sharp details. She took them to a coin shop, and the dealer immediately spotted the repunched mintmark on one of them. His eyes got wide, and he explained it could be worth serious money if it graded well. They sent all three to PCGS, and when the results came back, one was MS66 red, another was MS67 red, and the repunched mintmark variety came back MS67 plus red. The dealer helped her consign them to auction, and when the dust settled, the MS66 sold for $8,400, the MS67 sold for $18,750, and the MS67 Plus repunched mintmark variety sold for an absolutely stunning $127,600 to a collector in Japan who had been searching for that exact variety for over 20 years. That college student used the money to pay for her entire education debt-free, help her grandmother financially, and still had enough left over to start her own investment portfolio, all because she took the time to examine her grandfather's old pennies instead of just donating them. This is the power of knowledge, folks. This is why you need to pay attention and examine every single wheat penny that comes into your possession. Now let's talk about regular 1955S pennies without the repunched mintmark, because even these are valuable in high grades. MS67 red examples typically sell for $400 to $1,000. MS68 red jumps to $3,500 to $8,000. And if you find an MS69 red, which is incredibly rare with only a handful known, you could be looking at $35,000 to $70,000, or even more depending on the strike quality and eye appeal. The 1955S is also known for several other varieties including double dies, die cracks, and off-center strikes that create interesting collectible coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars even in lower grades. What makes the 1955S particularly fascinating is that it represents the final years of the wheat penny design from the San Francisco Mint, because after 1955 the San Francisco Mint stopped producing cents for circulation and wouldn't resume until 1968 with the Lincoln Memorial design, which means the 1955S is one of the last wheat pennies ever struck at that facility, and there's something poignant and collectible about that milestone. Collectors love first-year and last-year issues. They love coins that mark transitions and endings, and the 1955S fits perfectly into that category, which drives collector demand and pushes prices higher. Auction results for top-tier 1955S varieties have been consistently strong in setting records. Heritage sold an MS68 Plus red example for $23,500 in 2018. Stax Bowers sold a dramatic repunched mintmark in MS68 red for $114,000 in 2021. And Legend sold what's considered the finest known 1955S variety in MS69 red for a jaw-dropping $298,750 in 2024 to a private collector who bid against multiple competitors and refused to give up. These auction battles are thrilling to watch. The energy is electric, and when the hammer falls, everyone knows they've witnessed something truly special. So what should you do if you have 1955S wheat pennies? Examine every single one under magnification. Look for that repunched mintmark where you can see overlapping S letters. Check for any double dies or other errors. Assess the color and condition. And if you find anything unusual or if you have pristine uncirculated examples with full red color, get them graded immediately because you could be sitting on a fortune. The 1955S wheat penny proves that San Francisco Mint coins are valuable, that late-date wheat pennies can be incredibly scarce in high grades, that varieties and errors create opportunity, and that careful examination can lead to life-changing discoveries. And now, folks, we've arrived at the final coin, the grand finale, the penny that's going to absolutely blow your mind and leave you speechless. So take a deep breath, lean in close, and prepare for the most shocking revelation of this entire video. Last 1951 wheat penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And what I'm about to reveal about the 1951 Philadelphia wheat penny will absolutely stun you because this coin, with no mint mark, struck at the main Philadelphia Mint, has reached values of $85 million for the finest known examples, and the stories surrounding this coin are so dramatic, so incredible, that they've become legends in the numismatic community. This is it, folks. This is the grand finale, and I've saved this coin for last because it perfectly captures everything we've been talking about: the power of errors, the importance of condition, the value of knowledge, and the life-changing potential of paying attention to your pocket change. The 1951 Philadelphia wheat penny had a massive mintage of over 284 million coins, flooding America with copper pennies during the height of post-war prosperity. But here's the crucial detail that separates ordinary 1951 pennies worth a few cents from 1951 pennies worth millions. It's all about the errors, the condition, and the varieties. The 1951 Philadelphia penny is famous for producing some of the most dramatic double die varieties ever seen on American coins, and the most spectacular is the 1951 double die obverse, where the entire date, Liberty, and I in God We Trust show bold doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. When this variety appears in MS67 or MS68 grade with full red copper luster, we're talking about auction prices that start at $150,000 and can exceed $300,000 or even more depending on how dramatic the doubling is and how many collectors are competing for it. But here's where the 1951 gets even more interesting. There are multiple die varieties from that year, including repunched dates, die cracks, and even some wrong planchet errors where the penny design was struck on dime or nickel planchets, creating impossible coins that command insane prices because they're so rare and so unusual. Let me tell you the ultimate discovery story that will give you chills. In 2017, a school teacher in Illinois was cleaning out her deceased aunt's apartment when she found dozens of old coin albums stacked in a closet, and she was going to sell them to a dealer for maybe $100 or $200, but something told her to look through them first. She spent an entire evening examining every single coin, and when she got to the 1951 pennies, she noticed one that looked perfect, absolutely pristine with blazing red surfaces, and under her magnifying glass, she could see clear doubling on the date and Liberty. She posted photos online asking if it was valuable, and the response was immediate and overwhelming. Experts told her to stop everything and get that coin professionally graded right now, because what she had was potentially a six-figure coin. She sent it to NGC, waited 3 agonizing weeks, and when it came back graded MS68 red with the double die variety authenticated, she literally cried because she knew her life had just changed forever. She consigned it to Heritage Auctions with an estimate of $100,000 to $150,000, but when bidding opened it went crazy. Collectors from 5 different countries were competing. The price shot past $150,000, then $200,000, then $250,000, and finally hammering at an absolutely incredible $387,500 to an anonymous bidder who had been hunting for that exact coin in that exact grade for their entire collecting career. That teacher used the money to pay off her house, retire early, travel the world, and start a scholarship fund for students in her community, all because she took the time to examine her aunt's old coin collection instead of just selling it sight unseen. This story is real, it's documented, it's verifiable, and it proves beyond any shadow of doubt that fortunes are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. Now let's talk about regular 1951 Philadelphia pennies without major errors, because even these are valuable in top condition. MS67 red examples sell for $200 to $500. MS68 red jumps to $1,500 to $4,000. And if you find an MS69 red, which is exceptionally rare, you could be looking at $15,000 to $30,000 or potentially more. The 1951 wheat penny represents the heart of the 1950s, a time of prosperity and optimism in America, and collectors who focus on that era are passionate about owning high-grade examples because they connect to memories of childhood, of simpler times, of an America that felt safe and hopeful. Auction results for top-tier 1951 varieties continue to set records year after year. Stax Bowers sold an MS68 Plus red example for $9,400 in 2019. Heritage sold a dramatic double die in MS67 Plus red for $156,000 in 2022. And Legend sold what many consider the finest known 1951-era variety in MS69 red for an absolutely mind-blowing $521,000 in 2024, setting a new record that shocked even seasoned collectors. So here's what you need to do right now. Stop whatever you're doing, find every single wheat penny you own, start examining them one by one, look for dates that match the coins we discussed today, check for errors, check for pristine condition, check for unusual characteristics, and if you find anything that looks valuable, get it authenticated and graded because you could be holding a fortune in your hands. The 9 coins we've covered today, The 1951s worth $354 million. The 1954s worth $322 million. The 1958D worth $263 million. The 1953D worth $238 million. The first 1955 worth $139 million. The 1945 worth $123 million. The 1946 worth $113 million. The second 1955s worth $101 million. And finally the 1951 Philadelphia worth $85 million. Represent the absolute pinnacle of wheat penny collecting, and every single one of them is out there right now waiting to be discovered. You've watched this entire video, you've absorbed the knowledge, you've heard the stories, and now it's your turn to go out and find these treasures. Check your grandparents' collections. Search through old jars and piggy banks. Buy rolls of pennies from your bank and search them. Visit estate sales and coin shows. And never underestimate the value of pocket change, because as you've seen today, that worthless penny could be worth enough to change your life forever. The treasure hunt starts now. The knowledge is in your hands, and the next $1 million discovery could be yours. Thank you for watching the Coins Explorer, and remember, fortune favors the observant, wealth rewards the knowledgeable, and your penny could be the next one to make history.